Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange, and today I'm here to do another round of recent horror reads. I have been reading some fantastic books, including summer slashers, as well as several books that are written by Black authors. And this is a perfect time to segue to once again talk about the Black Lives Matters movement. I did address this in my Nightworms unpackaging video, but because I know not all of you watched that one, I did want to bring it up again. I have given thought, and I really do think the best way for me to promote and support the Black community is for myself to read and review as many diverse books as possible, focusing specifically on books written by people of color, own voices stories, etc. I've always tried to do that on my channel, but I'm redoubling my efforts because I know that there's room for improvement. And I have some great books to talk about here. I'm really excited to share some new favorites. And all that being said, let's get started. First, I want to talk about Deathless Divide by Justina Ireland. This is a brand new release that is the sequel or follow-up to Dread Nation. And while I'm going to be talking about a sequel, I'm going to keep this totally spoiler-free, so go ahead and keep watching. And this is a piece of historical horror that is set after the Civil War. However, the war ended differently because there was a zombie outbreak, and it really changed the course of history in the United States. In the first book, we follow a young woman named Jane who goes to school to learn how to protect privileged white women from the zombies, and the story primarily follows her. This second book was amazing. I liked the first book, honestly. I do recommend it, but the second book was even better, and I so rarely say that about sequels, but this book brought in a second perspective, which I really thought added to the story. It really rounded out the perspectives and provided a really good foil to our main character, Jane. I thought that this book explored so many important issues that just really hit home to me with everything going on, because of course, this book addresses white privilege and segregation and so many of the issues that are still so unfortunately topical today. And I do really think that this book was well written and thoughtful, and it's very character focused. While it's technically a zombie story, I would safely recommend it to those of you that don't normally like that subgenre. There's very little gore, and honestly the zombies are kind of in the background of the story. It's not particularly scary, or at least not scary from the zombie perspective. Instead, this is really more a story about how people are terrible to each other and the horrible things that people will do to those that are in a place of having less power. So if that sounds like the kind of story that you're interested in, I highly recommend this one. I thought the character work was excellent. There is diverse representation for an asexual character as well as a bisexual character, and I just love to see more people reading this one. Again, even if you don't like zombies, trust me, this is definitely one you want to check out. I read this on audio and it was an excellent experience with two fantastic Black narrators. Next, I want to talk about The Changeling by Victor LaValle, and this is a horror book that centers around a man named Apollo. He has recently gotten married and has a young newborn son. His wife is struggling. She seems a bit detached and possibly suffering from postpartum depression. However, early in the story, she does an unspeakable act, and from there, Apollo is set off on a journey to try to help and save his family potentially. And this story is so hard to talk about without spoiling too much, but wow, was it amazing. Let me just say that this is a new favorite. I'm just gonna put that out there. I'm not gonna make you wait till the end of the year because this story blew my mind. I've said before that often I struggle with the fact that I read so much horror that it all starts to blend together, and this book was just so different that it really caught me off guard. Other people will describe this book as a dark fantasy, and it definitely is both. So it certainly is horror. It does go to some very dark places, but it also has these fantasy elements. Without saying too much, I'll let you know that this entire book is centered around fairy tales, and it worked as an amazing narrative structure and really pulled the story together. This book definitely goes into some fantastical places, so you do need to be okay with those more supernatural, mystical elements in your horror books. But wow, if you are looking for a horror book that is different, this is the one to pick up. It is fairly slow paced, at least at the beginning. There's a lot of time spent on character development. Normally books like this I would describe as being too slow paced, but in this case I was completely pulled into the story. I was just immediately drawn to Apollo as a character and found him to be completely compelling. I really like that this is a story that's centered around parenthood, but specifically focuses on the role of the father, which you don't see enough. He really is the hero of this story, and I liked seeing things from his perspective. I also appreciate that this book is an excellent example of own voices storytelling, because Victor LaValle weaves in so much of the experience of being a Black man in America, which again is very topical right now. You have moments where they're dealing with the police and you are very much scared for the characters because you know how the police treat men in America. And this book is just so smart and so clever. There were so many times that I wanted to highlight different sentences and just remember and write down quotes. So if you enjoy really good writing, really good characters, and honestly, who doesn't, this is an excellent one to pick up. But at the same time, I do feel a lot of people dismiss this book as not being truly horror. So let me assure you that this book is very, very dark. There were a couple scenes that really disturbed me, really creeped me out, and one scene in particular I personally found very intense. And yes, I did read it late at night, but it honestly scared the heck out of me. And keep that in mind, I read a lot of horror, but I just found that scene to be so intense, and because I was so pulled into the story and invested in the characters, I was terrified reading it. And I don't say that often enough about books. So highly recommend this one if you can't tell. It also incorporates a lot of technology, which is something I love to see in my horror books, and modern technology at that. So social media, cell phones, and so forth play really integral roles in the story. And I just love that it's this fairy tale story with a lot of modern tech and just unique, diverse, everything I wanted right now. And like I said, I cannot stop gushing about this book, cannot stop recommending it. So I really hope you consider picking it up. Even if it's one that you haven't thought of reading before, it really needs to be on your radar, and I just loved it. After that, I just wanted to read more by Victor LaValle, so I ended up picking up his graphic novel called Destroyer. This is a collection of 6 issues, which is the complete story, and the story is a bit of a retelling of Frankenstein, specifically following a brilliant female scientist who goes about finding a way to bring her son back to life by piecing him together. And that story goes from there. This is a really nice piece of horror that blends in a lot of science fiction, just like the original tale. And it was just, again, smart, funny, diverse, with Black characters at the center of the story. So if you're interested in graphic novels that blend together those two genres, I definitely recommend that one as well. And last but certainly not least, I want to talk about Kill River 3 by Cameron Roubique. This is a slasher story that is set around a water park and follows a young girl named Cindy. This is the 3rd and possibly final book in the Kill River series, but just like before, while this is a sequel, I'm going to keep this really spoiler free so you can keep watching even if you haven't read the earlier books. If you're not familiar with the series, this is, as I mentioned, the slasher book version of a slasher movie, specifically one that might be set in the 80s. This book is filled with retro nostalgia, lots of references to music of the era, and I just loved it. I find these books to be really fun and entertaining, and this 3rd one is possibly one of the best in the series. I have said before that I enjoy Cameron Roubique's work, but I really have seen him grow over the years as an author and writer, and I think that he is just getting stronger as his books go on. This book was very well written, and I think he did some really smart things with the narrative. There were definitely some twists and turns that surprised me. I particularly loved the prologue, which was a really funny and got really exciting really fast, and the story does pick up and become very action-packed by the end of the prologue. So if you're looking for an action-packed story that is going to pull you in right from the beginning and keep you turning the pages, this is definitely that. There's a lot of good growth of the characters in this one. I like to see that Cindy and her friends are maturing. So Even if you've read the other two, you definitely want to continue on. This book is very satisfying. And if you haven't yet read the series, I do recommend starting back with Kill River 1 because it will somewhat spoil events if you go out of order. But trust me, pick up 1, pick up 2, and then 3 and binge through all of them because it's a lot of fun. Again, perfect to read during the summer. And I'm so honored once again to get a chance to review these for you because I got to read these back before they got super popular and back when this was more of a hidden gem. And now I'm so pleased to see more people checking out this series and his other books. And I just really love them if you can't tell. So that is it for this video. As always, let me know if you're planning on picking up any of the books I mentioned here, and I really hope you do because honestly, this was a fantastic group of books. I feel like my reading life is on fire because I'm just reading amazing book after amazing book, and it's so much fun to get on camera and gush about new favorites. If you have recommendations for more horror books by Black authors, I would love to hear that down below because I'm just finding the narratives to be really fresh and diverse and different than the other books I'm reading. So I would love to continue to read more so that I can again turn around and review them for you. Hopefully they become more favorites. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Otherwise, give this video a big thumbs up and share it around online, especially to show your support for other Black authors because visibility of this video means visibility for these authors, and I definitely want to continue to bring you this good, diverse content. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.